Dame is number one.
Notre Dame with a miracle win as the clock
Going
runs.
in. Notre Dame has scored.
We'll take our first question from Mark Lazarus with Chicago Sun-Times.
Hey, Coach. You talked a lot over the last couple of weeks about Everett Golson and the mental process of becoming more confident and more in charge of the offense. What have you seen over the bye week and yesterday's game that gives you confidence he's reaching that point?
Well, I think it started to show itself in the second week of preparation. I think his knowledge of Miami, having plenty of time to prepare for him, started to show itself on Thursday, and felt a lot more confident that he would be able to execute at a higher level than he had been previously. So I think just being with him every single day, we have days where we make progress and days that we got to come back and work on it a little bit harder. So, and I think this is going to be the case most of the year.
Do you worry at all with not having a bye week that it's going to be a little harder for Stanford?
Oh, I think you're always concerned when you have a younger quarterback that he's going to be able to pick up a lot of the things that a team like Stanford likes to do defensively. They're an aggressive defense. They bring a lot of looks. So we'll have to make sure that he has the looks down. But I will say this, he did some things in the second half that he had not done all year. He recognized pressure, did not run out of the pocket, stayed in there, delivered some balls on time. If that continues to show itself, he's going to be very, very difficult to defend because he's got that confidence level and a strong arm that he can deliver the ball.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
We'll go next to Brian Hamilton with Chicago Tribune.
Brian, kind of going off that, but maybe a little broader, you've had two very excellent offensive games against teams that maybe don't have the strongest defensive units statistically this year. How do you as a coach gauge what's real progress in your offense if maybe the defensive competition isn't quite top tier?
Yeah, I think fundamentals. I go back to looking at fundamentals and blocking and protection and route running, quarterback fundamentals. If it looks like the same old thing to me, then I too would be skeptical of improvement. So I have a different eye in a sense that I'm looking at those things more than anything else. So if I see, for example, Mike Golick pulling on power and him not running into the back of an alignment, but finding that linebacker and creasing him, those are fundamental improvements. Or Troy Nicholas on the edge of our defense blocking with better technique than he did against Michigan. That's progress. So that's how I see it, maybe from a different eye than who the opponent is per se.
Yeah, I guess just following up, maybe those are examples from yesterday, but how does your eye view what you saw yesterday in that context?
Well, regardless of Miami's statistical prowess, they are physical players that have a lot of young players that have physical talent. So it was a different game than, say, maybe where we outmatched another opponent physically. So I take both of those things into account and look at it that way relative to the evaluation.
I mean, you guys are 7th in the nation. Stanford's one loss, 17th in the country. You got game day rolling in this weekend. We've talked a lot about, keeping the noise out of your guys' ears. How difficult is that going to be this week? Can you compare it to any other regular season week you've had in recent years as head coach?
Yeah, we had NFL films here for the last 10 days with boom mics and cameras and players being wired for practice, and it's a life in the day of the Notre Dame football program. So it's kind of business as usual. But having said that, we'll have to remind 18 to 21-year-olds about how they got here and continue that same message.
Great. Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
We'll take our next question from Pete Sampson from Irish Illustrated.
Brian, I was just kind of curious for your offensive line, how much they needed a day like that. You mentioned kind of some of the fundamentals being better, but just to kind of, in some ways, live up to some of the hype that they had going into the preseason to put that kind of rushing performance on Miami.
I think anytime that you have a day like we did, it's going to build your confidence. But I will say that they didn't come in lacking the confidence in their ability to control the line of scrimmage. We had some, fundamental mistakes that needed to get cleaned up. Coach Heastant has been very consistent in what he's expected from our players each and every week on the offensive line. And a lot of this is, and I said this, I think, earlier in the week, the inside-outside schemes are coming together. We're a big gap and pull team last year. They're a lot more comfortable with their technique and their steps, and you can start to see it coming together.
After the game, Wood kind of talked about, he got enough carries to have some success. Is that just the kind of back that he is, that he needs to get warmed up? Do you kind of agree with that assessment?
That's just Sierra being Sierra. We love him, and he did some really good things for us. But again, he's a guy that loves to compete, is passionate, and probably wears his emotions on his sleeve.
And just sort of the ignoring the noise theme, with game day and all that, how much can the noise be a benefit to your program? I realize you want your players to block it out, but how big can this week be for the program, just in terms of national perception, things like that?
Well, I think you want to be in that group of football programs that has college game day on your campus. You want to be that program that appeals to the audience that we're out recruiting. We saw those uniforms and we got great feedback from those. So, yeah, I think you want to be in that in crowd. You don't want to be on the other side looking in. So all those things are great. We're excited about the spotlight being here in South Bend and for our program. And I'll just work real diligently this week to keep our guys on task.
Thanks.
Yep.
And once again, star one to ask a question. We'll go next to Eric Kansas from the South Bend Tribune.
Hey, Coach, there's been kind of an offensive explosion in some of these games around the country. You see 70, 63 scores, 50, 41, and things like that nature. And that when you look at the top of the polls, there's a lot of pretty good defenses that are with most of those teams. Kind of what's your take on the whole offensive explosion thing and where Notre Dame fits in with its defense in the big picture?
Well, I've done that too. Been there. Have had to run an offense that scored more points than the defense, and you don't do your defense any service in those kind of games. And when you play the game that way, you're susceptible to off days, and you're going to get beat. And when I came to Notre Dame, having lived in that world of trying to outscore opponents, I felt the best blueprint that we could put together for a national championship here was through our defense, and we're starting to see the building of that. And it's only our really our third year in terms of building it. We've got some ways to go there, but the blueprint here is to not to try to outscore people and turning it into a track meet. It's to control the line of scrimmage. It's to play great defense, to be solid in the special teams. So it's just a choice of the way I want our program to evolve.
Coach, last night you didn't have any sacks. You had one tackle for a loss, and yet Al Golden was talking about the pressure that your front seven put on and how difficult it still was to play against. Can you kind of see what he's talking about and what you saw in your front seven that you liked?
Yeah, we take away the depth of the pocket. There is no depth in the pocket. In other words, we get such a great push from our nose and our inside that it's hard to see downfield. You have to move your feet, which takes you out of timing. A lot of the passing game is built upon the ability to step up and have great timing, and we do a very good job of disrupting timing within our scheme, and that continues to be our biggest strength.
Everett's own running, you talked about it a little bit last night that you felt like this was the week to put that in. You know, he wasn't a big runner in high school. I think a lot of people thought maybe he was. What's maybe the most difficult thing in becoming a solid runner in this offense?
Well, I think you've used the right word, a runner, you know, and understanding how he fits into what we want accomplished by the quarterback. And he doesn't have to run every down, but when we're trying to block effectively and we've got to leave a guy unblocked, he's got to be able to make the right reads and take it or give it out given what he sees. So this is a disciplined approach to everything that we do, not only in the passing game, not only in the management of the game, but also in the running game. And I personally thought that once we got him running a little bit, he seemed a whole lot more comfortable in the game, and I would think that we would consider, you know, continuing that route moving forward.
Last one from me. I know last night you thought Theo was a little dinged up, but it was nothing serious at second glance. Kind of, you still seeing the same thing on Sunday here?
Yeah, we for a game, you know, against Miami, you'd figure that, you know, you're going to get a couple of guys banged up. We did. Eifert had a couple of stitches and a laceration, nothing major. We had an ankle on T.J. Jones. We had an elbow. It wasn't hyperextended, more just of a bone bruise by Theo, and that's really it. So just a few bumps and bruises. And Goodman, his back locked up on him, but we think he'll be fine moving through the week. Other than that, a pretty good week for us.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll take our next question from Lou Smudgy from Blue and Gold Illustrated.
Good afternoon, Coach. Just following up on Everett, how much was there maybe a fear? He's not the biggest guy around, but at taking and absorbing some of the hits from defenses as a runner would potentially affect his passing, or was it more just the mental aspect that held him back from maybe running his own option a little bit more?
Just didn't like the way he carried the ball. Exposed the ball a lot in practice. Wasn't comfortable, given the fact that we have to be very, very conscious of turnovers. He's protected the ball better, though he did put the ball on the ground twice. That was probably our biggest concern of running him, was that we didn't want the ball on the ground. But we're working at it. In practice, he's better at it. He's cognizant of it. He's aware of it. And as he continues to protect it better each and every week in practice, we'll continue to run him more.
Was there any fear that, physically the beating he might take could affect his throwing motion or anything like that, or strength?
No, I'm not going to put our quarterback in a position, especially him. He's not a big, thick, physical guy like, say, Andrew Hendricks, who's 230 pounds. We're not going to run him in that fashion that we're going to grind him out and put him in a position where he can't really utilize his strength. So we'll pick our spots, and we'll make sure that he's one-on-one when it comes to some of the running opportunities that he has.
And one of the main pregame angles of the game was this is maybe the best passing team that the secondary will be facing this year. And outside of the early two drops by Philip Dorsett, to hold him to one catch for 6 yards after he had caught 375 yards worth the previous 2 weeks, how did you overall grade the work of the secondary?
We liked our rerouting. We thought we missed a couple of opportunities to reroute on the perimeter, but by and large, our grading was that we were on spot, we were disciplined, and we put ourselves in a good position to succeed because we pushed the pocket pretty good and took away some quick throws that they like. And then I think probably the biggest thing was that after we settled to the speed of the game and picked up our own level of speed, we kept the ball in front of us, which was the number one goal going into the game.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll take our next question from Sean Stires from Irish Sports Daily.
Well, I was going to kind of go there myself. Just kind of, I guess, staying with the secondary first. Did anything you saw from your back end surprise you last night? Just considering the formidable challenge and all they've done with the passing game the last couple weeks?
No, I don't think anything surprised me as much as we were able to utilize all of our calls. I think I mentioned this last Thursday, in that we have not been allowed to really, because of the teams that we've played, get into all of our zone coverage looks, and we've got a multitude of them. And they probably saw 3 or 4 different zone looks that they had not seen all year because of the games that we played. Again, Navy, Purdue, which was a run team first. With a pass team first, we got into a lot more 3 down. We were able to drop 8 in coverage. We were able to do a lot more things on the back end of our defense.
Just with all the varying offenses you've seen, how impressed are you on a week-to-week basis with what you're seeing from this defense of yours?
Well, anytime that you can go back-to-back weeks with a Michigan team, and again, obviously the bye week in there, but a Michigan team that presents so many conflicts in run pass, and then come back against a team that really does throw it well. We've seen it with an option offense. Think of what Coach Diaco has had to defend in the 5 weeks. Option offense, a run first with a quarterback in Purdue, Michigan State, a grinded out great running back. It's been an outstanding performance to date, and we've seen it all. Now we just need to build on it.
The laceration you talked about with Tyler, where exactly was that?
3 stitches in his elbow. We got the stitches in it after the game. Looked at it, looked clean. There was a lot of dirt because of the field and the turf itself being pulled up. We got it cleaned out. No infection. He'll be good to go on Tuesday.
Are you ready to start talking about next year's Shamrock Series uniforms already?
This is the first question that was actually brought up about the uniforms, which goes to show if you win, everything's great. If you lose, you hate them.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
We'll go next to Jeff Terrett from Associated Press.
Coach, in light of Everett's strong performance last night, can you talk a little bit about how that makes you feel now going into what could be the toughest stretch of your season with Stanford, BYU, and Oklahoma?
Well, certainly you feel better that he's feeling more confident and that he's out there understanding the game and the way it needs to be played. I think it's going to be a great step forward for him in practice, and we're hopeful every day with Everett that he's purposeful and he comes to practice and he's locked in and ready to go. But again, every day is a new day for us, and we'll just take it one step at a time with Everett. We're not ready to feel like we're anywhere near to being that finished product, but a game like this will certainly buoy his confidence and his ability to really focus in on the details of practice.
Also, we saw in that very first series of the game last night, those 2 drop passes by Dorsett I guess if he catches either one of those balls, and that could completely set a different whole tone for that game. Are you confident that you made the adjustments you need to make in the secondary of that game, or do you still feel like you have some work to do this week in that end of the game?
No, we were in great coverage. There was a burst at the top of the route that we did not match with the same kind of urgency. We corrected that after they came to the sideline. Coach Elliott and Coach Cooks got on the phone right away, made the corrections with how they need to burst to stay on top of the route, and it wasn't an issue with the rest of the game. Because believe me, they saw what we saw, so they went back to those same routes, and we were on top of them. So I was really pleased with our guys picking up their game when they knew they needed to.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
And a reminder, it's *1 to ask your question. We'll take our next question from Matt Fortuna from ESPN.com.
Hey, Brian, not to belabor the defensive questions, but to look up and see you guys second in the country in scoring defense, giving up less than 8 points per game, what do you think is the ceiling for this unit as a whole?
Well, I think, for us, it's continually, getting that consistent performance week in and week out, and not having any lapses you've seen a pretty disciplined group where there's very few breaks, very few penalties, and their assignment correct. And so the challenge for us is to continue to do this week in and week out. And that's not easy to do. It takes intense preparation. It takes everybody committed to the task at hand and not swaying at all and saying, hey, we've arrived. Because once you think you have in this business, you know, obviously you're going to be lost. So the challenge for us is not to turn somebody into what they're not. You know, just continue to improve on those fundamentals. And if we do that, we've got enough good players out there that we can do this week in and week out.
Thanks.
And at this time, we have no further questions in the phone queue.
Great. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you Tuesday, and we'll have the transcript on our website later today.